So we've been following Jay for a long time. So when we hear something like that, nothing he's saying is a mystery. Like, we know exactly who he's talking to and why he's talking to them. But if you haven't been following the storyline, you're like, what the hell is he talking about?
In this part of the diss, or the response, or whatever you want to call it, he is talking about Tory Lanez. He's talking about, when he talks about, being on the jail phone and talking about having in the drink, that's the Meg Thee Stallion situation, the ambulance chaser, Tony Busby, and those allegations that he threw out, which we watched fumble right in front of our eyes. He also talks about the Tony Busby reference, and just the fact that people have not heard him directly talk about what that year was like for him, like when he was accused of all those things.
Drake wasn't merely reacting to Jay-Z's freestyle from somewhere in the audience. Reports now claim he allegedly confronted Jay-Z behind the scenes after the performance. Security personnel reportedly had to step in and separate the situation, while online threats have continued to surface ever since. The Roots picnic didn't truly end when the final song faded out. It ended when the tension reportedly followed everyone backstage. The public version of events says Jay-Z delivered an unexpected a cappella diss. The version grabbing attention now is that the performance sparked consequences far beyond the stage and into the backstage corridors. And with major Yankee Stadium appearances approaching, many people are wondering whether this story is only getting started. This is no longer being framed as a typical rap rivalry, and you won't believe how quickly it has escalated into what some are calling a full-blown security concern, tied to a moment Jay-Z can never take back.
Word, that's crazy.
He's spitting balls. He rapping. He does that all the time, though.
Yeah.
Like, when he has these special concerts, whether it's the B-side or something, he always gonna give you a freestyle to let you know exactly what he's been thinking.
Yeah, so
cut the beat.
So
Go back.
Let's rewind to March, because this is where the story starts getting interesting. Jay-Z sat down for a GQ interview and spoke like someone who had completely risen above the drama and conflict that usually surrounds hip-hop. He openly questioned whether rap battles still served a meaningful purpose in today's culture. He argued that beefs often create unnecessary negativity. He specifically criticized situations where family members become collateral damage in public feuds. According to him, that was a boundary that should never be crossed. Looking back now, those comments feel very different. They either represent one of the greatest misdirections of his career or the final sincere thoughts of a man who knew the storm was already coming. Because while those polished interview photos were being published, several conflicts were already brewing beneath the surface. Kanye West had previously made controversial remarks involving Jay-Z's family. Drake was reportedly working on music that challenged the relevance of the generation before him. Nicki Minaj was publicly airing grievances involving business disputes connected to Jay-Z. Damon Dash was continuing to accuse Jay-Z of deliberately blocking financial opportunities that could have benefited him. None of this was happening in secret. Jay-Z was fully aware of the conversations, yet he still stepped in front of a national publication and delivered the message of a calm elder statesman. And here's the question that makes this entire situation so fascinating. The issue isn't simply whether Jay-Z was being hypocritical. The real question is whether he truly believed what he said during that interview, or whether the freestyle later revealed what he had been holding back all along. Now pay attention to the timeline, because this is where everything starts connecting. The GQ interview was published on March 24th. During that conversation, Jay-Z defended the decision to have Kendrick Lamar headline the Super Bowl halftime show. He presented the choice as a straightforward decision based on Kendrick's incredible year. According to Jay-Z, it had nothing to do with taking sides against Drake. He even suggested that the battle between the two artists had little to do with him personally. But from Drake's perspective, many viewed it very differently. Some interpreted the move as the establishment backing one side of the conflict. That's where the divide became impossible to ignore. Jay-Z maintained neutrality. Drake's supporters saw strategic alignment. Whether either side is completely right may never be known, but the consequences were real. Drake reportedly responded by leaning even harder into the idea that the old guard had become disconnected from the current era. The message was clear. He didn't feel obligated to seek approval from anyone who came before him. Meanwhile, Jay-Z was publicly discussing peace, while tensions behind the scenes appeared to be reaching a breaking point. Either he was genuinely trying to lower the temperature while knowing a confrontation was inevitable, or he was preparing the audience for something entirely different. Neither interpretation leaves much room for the image of complete neutrality he had presented. Then came the weeks between that interview and the Roots picnic on May 30th, and that's when everything accelerated. Drake released new material that many listeners interpreted as direct shots rather than subtle messages. On multiple tracks, he appeared to challenge the influence and relevance of hip-hop's older generation. In one of the most talked about lines, he suggested that certain veterans had benefited more from his success than their own. Another lyric implied that he saw little value in seeking wisdom from artists who came before him. That wasn't coded language, it was a loud declaration of independence. Drake wasn't hinting anymore, he was openly questioning the authority of some of rap's biggest names. At the same time, unresolved tensions involving Kanye West, Nicki Minaj, and Damon Dash continued lingering in the background. The controversies never disappeared, the accusations never fully faded away, the pressure simply kept building. From the outside, Jay-Z appeared calm and unbothered, but underneath that image, the temperature seemed to be rising. So when he stepped onto the Belmont Plateau stage in front of thousands of fans, many now believe they weren't watching a relaxed legend enjoying a nostalgic moment. They were watching someone who had spent months absorbing criticism from every direction. What followed wasn't just a surprise performance, it felt like the release of months, maybe years of accumulated frustration. And the way he delivered it may have been just as important as what he actually said. He opened with Hovey Baby, immediately calling back to an era when he was still fighting to prove himself. Then he moved into a completely a cappella performance. No beat, no production, no distractions. That's a bold choice because it leaves every single word exposed. When there's no instrumental hiding behind you, the message becomes impossible to ignore. Every line lands exactly as intended. Every pause carries weight. Adding to the symbolism, Jay-Z appeared with a refreshed look that many interpreted as a visual reset. This wasn't the corporate executive image people had become used to seeing. It felt closer to the hungry competitor who built his reputation from the ground up. Then came the bars themselves, and this is where things really exploded. He immediately flipped Drake's own language back against him. Drake had argued that the old guard's time was up. Jay-Z responded by turning that phrase into a statement about ownership, wealth, and long-term success. But he didn't stop there. He moved beyond music charts into conversations about business. He referenced publishing rights, contracts, and financial structures. Then came the line many people are still discussing. By framing Drake as a worker rather than a boss, Jay-Z shifted the conflict from rap competition into a debate about ownership and control. That's a completely different battlefield, because once the discussion becomes about who truly owns the music, the catalogs, and the business itself, you're no longer talking about diss tracks, you're talking about power. And that's the kind of topic that stays with people long after the performance ends.
Went down over the weekend, but we are going to get right into the stuff. So Jay-Z, he did a freestyle in the midst of his performance and addressed a lot of things that we've seen play out over the last.
But here's where things took an even more dramatic turn. Jay-Z wasn't focused solely on Drake. During the performance, he also addressed Kanye West's past comments involving his family, making it clear that his children were not up for public discussion, and suggesting that Ye's confidence online doesn't always match his energy in person. Then, without slowing down, he shifted his attention towards Nicki Minaj. He implied that she had fallen back into patterns he viewed as harmful, and referenced controversies surrounding her household in a way that immediately grabbed attention. These weren't bars that sounded purely defensive. This didn't feel like someone simply putting up a shield around his family. To many listeners, it sounded more like a direct offensive move aimed at deeply personal subjects. He also took shots at Damon Dash, mocking aspects of his appearance and speech while revisiting a relationship that has been filled with public tension for decades. And the list didn't stop there. Jay-Z even referenced Tory Lanez and dismissed narratives suggesting Roc Nation was losing its influence. He briefly mentioned Jaguar Wright as well, despite many people believing that chapter of the conversation had already faded from public attention. That's where the performance becomes difficult to ignore. Why target so many different people at once, especially some who hadn't recently been at the center of the conflict? Usually, a calculated response focuses on one opponent and delivers a precise message. This was something entirely different. In a single, uninterrupted sequence, Jay-Z addressed Drake, Kanye West, Nicki Minaj, Damon Dash, Jaguar Wright, and Tory Lanez. That's an enormous number of targets for one performance. And honestly, that's what makes this story so fascinating. It can be interpreted in two completely different ways. One interpretation is that this was the work of a master strategist sending a message to the entire industry in one carefully planned moment. The other interpretation is far more uncomfortable. Maybe what people witnessed was years of frustration finally boiling over in public. Every criticism, every headline, every accusation, every comment that had been ignored or brushed aside, suddenly it all seemed to surface at once. And here's the part that keeps people debating. You can't easily tell which explanation is correct. From the outside, a perfectly calculated move and an emotional release can look exactly the same. That's what makes this moment so complicated. The line between strategy and frustration becomes almost impossible to see. And because of that, the questions surrounding Jay-Z's motivations may follow him for a long time. Then, the story takes another unexpected turn. While delivering bars aimed at Kanye West, Jay-Z also performed songs like No Church in the Wild and Gotta Have It, records created during the peak of their Watch the Throne era together. Think about that for a second. On one hand, there were clear signs of conflict. On the other hand, he was still celebrating music tied directly to one of the most successful partnerships of his career. That's a contradiction most people overlook. If this was purely about defending his family, why continue performing songs that symbolize that partnership? The answer isn't simple, and maybe that's exactly why it matters. What this reveals is that Jay-Z may not be operating from one clear motivation. Instead, he appears to be carrying years of history, loyalty, disappointment, success, and resentment into the same moment. The friendship, the business relationship, and the fallout are all tangled together. That's why reducing the situation to a simple hero versus villain narrative doesn't really work. There are too many layers, too many unresolved emotions, too much shared history. And that's what makes the entire story feel bigger than a standard rap feud. It's not just about who said what, it's about relationships that were never fully repaired and wounds that may never completely heal.
Are scared of him. I think they more so, they don't want him to embarrass their reputation and things that they've been known for. You understand?
Then there's another detail that makes this entire situation even harder to ignore. Jay-Z told the audience that the freestyle had not been rehearsed with the Roots beforehand. Technically speaking, that appears to be true. The band reportedly wasn't involved in preparing the performance. But when you actually listen to the lyrics, something doesn't quite add up. The bars are packed with layered references, calculated wordplay, and highly specific callbacks. We're talking about flipping opponents' statements, referencing business agreements, revisiting years-old industry conflicts, and even taking personal shots with remarkable precision. That's not the kind of material most people casually create in the heat of the moment. The presentation felt spontaneous. The writing felt meticulously crafted. And that's where the mystery begins. Was this a carefully planned attack disguised as raw emotion? Or was it genuine emotion that had been building for so long that it arrived fully prepared for battle? That's the question everyone keeps asking, and honestly, it may never have a definitive answer. The reality is that trying to force a clean conclusion misses the point entirely. The uncertainty is what makes the story so compelling. Jay-Z delivered something that appeared authentic on the surface, while simultaneously feeling strategically designed underneath. As viewers, we're left balancing both possibilities at the same time. The freestyle didn't just create headlines, it set the stage for everything that followed. When lyrics move beyond competition and start touching on business structures, family matters, personal relationships, physical appearance, and deeply sensitive topics, the consequences rarely stay confined to the stage. That's the part many people overlook. The more specific the attacks become, the greater the chance that emotions spill into the real world. And that's exactly why reports of a possible backstage confrontation immediately gained traction. Allegations surfaced suggesting security may have been forced to intervene after tensions escalated behind the scenes. According to the developing reports, Drake allegedly responded with more than words. If true, that would take the story far beyond music. But it's important to remember that none of those claims have been officially confirmed. And that's where responsible reporting matters. Right now, the sourcing behind those allegations remains limited, and viewers should treat them accordingly. Still, what makes the rumor difficult for some people to dismiss is the atmosphere surrounding the event itself. Think about it for a second. If someone publicly questions your status, challenges your business position, and does it in front of tens of thousands of people, emotions can run high. When Jay-Z allegedly framed Drake as a worker rather than a boss, the message wasn't simply artistic, it was personal. It struck at reputation, influence, and identity. Does that automatically mean a confrontation happened? Absolutely not. But it does explain why so many people immediately found the reports believable. The tension was already there. The crowd felt it. The industry noticed it. And whether the rumors turn out to be true or false, one thing is certain. The temperature of this feud has moved far beyond a normal rap battle.
He was upset. He was upset on that record. Somebody pissed him off that day.
But it was just the
And then the situation reportedly became even more serious. In the aftermath of the performance, reports began circulating that threats against Jay-Z had increased, forcing heightened security measures around him. Unlike a rap opponent, a threat doesn't come from one predictable direction, and it can't be answered with another verse. That's when a feud stops looking like entertainment and starts raising real security concerns. The Roots picnic brought together roughly 40,000 people. If tensions were already spilling beyond the stage there, many are now asking what could happen at Yankee Stadium, where even larger crowds are expected across multiple scheduled dates. Suddenly, the upcoming shows aren't just concerts anymore, they're becoming part of the story itself. And that's what makes the timeline so important. The events are already locked in place, and every day that passes adds another layer of pressure. With no public statement addressing the apparent contradiction between the earlier GQ interview and the later Freestyle, no direct response to the backstage allegations, and no public discussion of the reported threats, speculation continues to grow. Silence can mean many things. It can signal confidence and control. It can also signal uncertainty. The question everyone keeps asking is which one applies here. Because once words leave the stage, they rarely stay there. They travel backstage, they travel into private conversations, they travel into future events where thousands of people are waiting to see what happens next. And that's why this story refuses to slow down. At the center of it all remains a contradiction that critics continue pointing out. The same artist who publicly questioned the value of rap conflicts later delivered one of the most aggressive performances of his career. Whether people view that as justified or hypocritical depends entirely on their perspective. But one thing is undeniable: the conversation has grown far beyond the freestyle itself. What began as a performance is now being discussed as an ongoing situation with real-world consequences. And according to many observers, there is no clear off switch anymore. The next chapter may depend entirely on who decides to speak first. Then there's another detail that has kept the rumors alive. The alleged backstage confrontation continues spreading online, but what stands out to many people isn't simply the claim itself, it's what happened afterward. Neither Jay-Z nor Drake has publicly issued a direct denial. Neither camp has delivered the kind of immediate, unmistakable response that would instantly shut down the speculation. For two of the most carefully managed figures in the music industry, that silence has become a story of its own. Some believe it means nothing, others believe it means everything. And that's where things get interesting, because when powerful people choose not to address a rumor, observers inevitably begin searching for reasons. Whether those reasons are valid or not remains unclear, but the absence of a response has only fueled more questions. And right now, those unanswered questions may be driving the story just as much as the allegations themselves.
To another conversation. So people think because he dropped these 3 albums at one time that this is his way of ending what his obligations are to the label, right?
Okay.
Now, I just found out that he also self-funded this album, which I think is a telltale
cool.
sign.
That's
It gives him a lot of control. But on Firm Friends, which is on Iceman, he talks about going independent and kind of explains Iceman. Let's take a...
Now let's move beyond the rumors for a moment and focus on what has actually been reported and discussed publicly, because those facts alone are enough to raise serious questions. Reports indicate that security around Jay-Z has reportedly been increased following the fallout from the event. Unlike a rap rival, potential threats don't come from one identifiable source and can't be answered with another diss track. That's where the situation starts shifting from entertainment into something much more serious. Every public appearance suddenly carries a different level of scrutiny. Yankee Stadium isn't a small venue. It's multiple nights, massive crowds, and an operation that already requires extensive planning before adding any additional security concerns. That's why many observers no longer see this as a simple rap dispute. They're viewing it as a developing security challenge connected to events that are already locked into the calendar. What makes the conversation especially significant is how it intersects with Jay-Z's public image. For years, his story has been built around evolution and transformation. The narrative has always been about rising from difficult circumstances and becoming a symbol of business success, ownership, and influence. That's the brand, that's the message. It's a story that has resonated with fans, corporations, and major institutions alike. But now, instead of discussions centered on music, entrepreneurship, or cultural impact, conversations are increasingly focused on security concerns, public tension, and what might happen next. That's not a minor shift in perception. That's a change that strikes directly at the image that has been carefully built over decades. And when public perception changes, business conversations often change with it. The ripple effects don't stop with one person either. Roc Nation's partnerships extend into some of the biggest organizations in sports and entertainment, including its high-profile relationship with the NFL. Those partnerships are built on trust, stability, and reputation. Companies invest in brands that project confidence and predictability. When headlines start focusing on controversy, public disputes, and reports of heightened security, executives inevitably pay attention. The question inside boardrooms isn't whether a freestyle sounded impressive. The question is whether any of these developments create additional risk. That's how major corporations think. Legal departments don't evaluate lyrics, they evaluate exposure. And while those conversations rarely become public, they're often the discussions that shape future deals, renewals, and long-term partnerships. What's interesting is that this isn't the first time questions like these have surrounded Jay-Z. Critics have been making accusations about his business decisions for years, and one of the most persistent voices has been Damon Dash. For decades, Dash has publicly argued that certain business moves unfairly benefited Jay-Z while hurting former partners. One claim that continues to resurface involves Rocawear and an alleged deal that Dash says could have earned him a substantial financial payout. According to Dash's version of events, a public announcement made at a critical moment affected the outcome of that opportunity. He has long maintained that the timing wasn't accidental. Whether people believe that claim or not, the fact remains that Dash has continued telling the same story for years. He has repeatedly portrayed Jay-Z as someone willing to make ruthless business decisions when necessary. And because those accusations have never completely disappeared, they continue resurfacing whenever a new controversy places Jay-Z under the spotlight once again.
Is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life. With all the charges he had to, he won't get out till 70 years old. He about 70. That's when they start talking about letting him.
Then came the moment many people had been waiting for. After years of public criticism from Damon Dash, Jay-Z finally appeared to address him directly during the freestyle. But here's what caught everyone's attention. Instead of confronting the long-running business allegations head-on, he reportedly focused on personal insults. He mocked Dash's appearance. He mocked the way he speaks. What he didn't do was publicly address the financial claims that have followed him for years. He didn't offer an alternative explanation for the alleged Rocawear situation. He didn't provide new details about the business disagreements that have fueled so much speculation. That's why the response immediately sparked debate. For critics, it didn't feel like a rebuttal. It felt like a public humiliation delivered from a position of maximum influence. And whether that's a fair assessment or not, it left many people asking why the accusations themselves remained unanswered. The same criticism surfaced when people examined how Jay-Z addressed Nicki Minaj. Over recent months, Nicki has publicly raised questions about financial matters and her past relationship with Roc Nation. Those statements have remained available for everyone to see, and they have generated discussion across the industry. Yet during the freestyle, Jay-Z reportedly chose not to engage directly with those business claims. Instead, he shifted the focus toward deeply personal subjects involving her private life and family. That's a move that immediately changed the tone of the conversation. Rather than debating contracts, deals, or finances, the spotlight moved toward personal vulnerabilities. And that's where many observers became uncomfortable. Whether someone agrees with Nicki's accusations or completely rejects them, the imbalance stands out. One side was raising business questions, the other side appeared to be responding with personal attacks. That's why the reaction was so divided. People weren't just debating who was right, they were debating whether the conversation had moved into territory it never needed to reach. But perhaps the strangest part of this entire story isn't what was said, it's what happened afterward. Think about it. Jay-Z's Freestyle reportedly touched on Drake, Kanye West, Nicki Minaj, and Damon Dash in one sweeping performance. Normally, a diss that broad triggers an immediate response cycle. Social media lights up, interviews appear, new music drops, statements get released. That's how modern rap conflicts usually work. Yet this time, almost nothing happened publicly. The silence was impossible to ignore. Not Drake, not Ye, not Nicki, not Damon Dash. Nobody rushed to answer. And for a moment that generated so much attention, that quiet felt almost unnatural. Of course, there are several possible explanations. If legal issues are connected to any of the backstage allegations, public comments could potentially complicate matters for those involved. For Kanye West, predicting a response has never been easy because his next move is often impossible to forecast. For Nicki Minaj, engaging publicly could bring even more attention to topics she may prefer to leave behind. And then there's Damon Dash, a man who has spent years speaking openly about his disagreements with Jay-Z. Suddenly becoming quiet at a moment like this naturally raises questions. Maybe it's strategic, maybe it's temporary, or maybe everyone involved understands that the situation has reached a point where adding more words could create more problems than it solves. Whatever the reason, one thing is certain, the silence has become just as interesting as the freestyle itself.
Greed? The money?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or the power, one of the two.
I mean, it looks more like power.
It's this spell, right?
Right.
That Jay got. That's why I kind of look at Kanye and Damon on them. They the old me.
Right.
They the YouTube me.
Yeah.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? That this Dame look like the old YouTube me to me, because he hurt, bro.
The silence from every major figure involved may be the most important part of this story right now. With each day that passes without a response, the tension continues to build, and all eyes are now turning toward the upcoming Yankee Stadium shows. 3 nights, massive crowds, cameras everywhere, an audience that extends far beyond the people in the seats. Jay-Z faces a difficult reality. If he changes course, people will analyze why. If he steps onto that stage as planned, every lyric, every guest appearance, and every decision will be examined for hidden meaning. That's the position he finds himself in now. Something is going to dominate the conversation during those events. Whether it's a new statement, an unexpected appearance, a response to the controversy, or an entirely different development, the spotlight will be impossible to avoid. The calendar itself has become part of the suspense. And that brings us back to the question sitting at the center of everything. Which version of Jay-Z are people supposed to believe? Is it the respected veteran who spoke about unity, growth, and moving beyond destructive conflicts? Or is it the artist who stepped onto a major stage and delivered one of the most aggressive performances of his career? That's the contradiction many critics keep returning to. The interview exists, the freestyle exists, both are documented, both are part of the public record. Yet they seem to point in completely different directions. And so far, Jay-Z hasn't publicly explained how those two versions fit together. That's why the conversation refuses to disappear. Every future interview, public appearance, and business move will likely be viewed through that same lens. At some point, people expect clarity. The only question is whether that clarity will come through explanation, escalation, or continued silence. What's fascinating is that there doesn't appear to be an easy escape route from this narrative. The decision Jay-Z makes next could define how this entire chapter is remembered. If he addresses the criticism directly, that creates one story. If he ignores it, that creates another. If he responds through music, interviews, or public appearances, each path carries its own consequences. And that's why so many people are watching closely. There isn't a simple third option that makes the questions disappear. The contradiction remains, the pressure remains, and until something changes, the debate will continue. Meanwhile, several major pieces of the story remain unresolved. Reports of a backstage confrontation have not been officially confirmed, yet they continue circulating because many people believe they fit the intensity of the moment. The discussions surrounding security concerns haven't gone away. Questions about business disputes remain unanswered. The artists and public figures mentioned during the freestyle have largely remained quiet. And perhaps most importantly, those stadium dates are still approaching. That's why this story feels unfinished. It isn't something people are analyzing in hindsight, it's something still unfolding in real time. the next major development could arrive through a statement, a performance, a response track, or an entirely unexpected twist. And when it does, millions of people will be paying attention.
He was more quiet. Jay was more quiet. But I mean, I learned that Jay was being quiet because he was taking notes. He was taking notes, observing everything, taking it all in. You know, because, you know, sometimes you're around and you're watching to see things to do. But some people are around.
And that's where we're leaving the story for now. But the biggest question is no longer what happened at the Roots picnic. The real question is, what happens next when Jay-Z steps onto that Yankee Stadium stage in front of tens of thousands of people and the entire industry is watching? Does he finally address the contradiction that everyone keeps talking about? Does he double down and push the situation even further? Or does he attempt to calm everything down and move past the controversy altogether? And here's the part you won't believe. Out of all the names mentioned, not one major target has publicly fired back yet. Not Drake, not Ye, not Nicki Minaj, not Damon Dash. So who breaks the silence first? Now I want to hear from you. What do you think is really happening behind the scenes? Is Jay-Z carefully controlling the narrative, or has this situation grown bigger than anyone expected? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this conversation is far from over. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.